authors, book lovers, and storytellers. Welcome to another Reader's Magnet featured author interview. We are currently live in all of our streaming platforms YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. My name is Kimmy, and I am your host for today. And together with me right now is one of the Reader's Magnet featured authors, here to talk more about his journey as an author and the inspiration behind his book. We have David Witherington Stewart, author of the book Angel of Mortality. Hello, David. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be on with you.
All right, it's good to hear. And you know what, David? I think the best way to start of this interview is for you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, my name is David Witherington Stewart. I'm widowed. My wife died in 1999. I'm 85 years old. Uh, I was with the space program for 40 years. I started out with the first Atlas launch in 1957, and I retired in 1995. I worked on Project Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and the space shuttle, including the design of the space shuttle, and I was supervisor for flight software. I'm following the problems Boeing is having with this with their airplane, and I wish I were back working on it because we had a lot of that kind of thing we fixed on the shuttle before we ever got it off the ground. And I started
Wow.
writing when I retired, and I've written. This is Angel of Mortality is actually my sixth novel, and I keep learning every time. I think that's the big thing you have to do is you just have to sit your butt down and write. And the more you do it and the more you publish, the more you learn, the better you get, hopefully.
True. And you have an amazing life, amazing job that you did as part of the space program. I've actually never met anyone with that kind of job or that kind of life experience, and I think you've got a very good what do you call it, different kind of experience from other people, and you now helping out or sharing out books with this kind of what do you call this genre. It's also really amazing as well. And so, David, the start of the interview, when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer?
Well, I first started writing really in 1967, and that was because that was the end of the Gemini program, uh, and I went over. I didn't want to work on Apollo because I just thought they had too many problems, and I didn't. They weren't going to give me a good enough position. So I went to work over in the Orlando plant for Martin.
Mhm.
And the things I saw them doing, they're laying people off for no reason and stuff like that. I wrote the novel really as kind of a business satire. And I found the
Mhm.
publisher, but the thing was, it was a children's novel and we needed pictures. And the
Right.
illustrator increased her price, so we never published the book.
Mm.
Uh, and then I always wanted to be a writer after that, but actually I became a technical writer. I was a proposal manager for a long time. And if you ever written proposals and white papers for Congress, you know there's a lot of writing involved in that, but it's technical writing. It's not so much fiction writing. So I really
Oh.
started fiction writing in 1995, and I just wanted to do it. I
Mhm.
love to read, and I just thought, well, I think I can do that. It turns out not to be so easy. I took a lot of courses, and I ended up actually starting to write my first novel in 2006 and published it in 2009.
Mm, that's amazing. It's a good thing that right now you're doing your passion, which is writing, right? And you're doing a fiction as well. I love fiction genre, by the way. And it's one way for you to also more of like giving you a different or giving people a different world to go to. More of like an escape from the reality. And I know that you're also a busy person when you do part of the space program and all that. Although now you're a retiree or you're still working.
No, I'm well. I had my own business until
Okay.
2009. I
Mm-hmm.
did business plans and proposals and grant requests for people, and
Mm.
that was a lot of work. I had 9 employees, so that was a good experience.
Oh,
But
so you do
writing is what I
freelance.
really like to do, and I write every day. I write 250 to 1,250 words every day.
Oh.
And right now, and the thing is, I've written in different genres. My first genre was paranormal. And then I wrote another one that really turned out to be more of a thriller. And then I kind of went over uh, to the actually to a more again more of a thriller, but more of a suspense thriller. And then I did a
Mm,
fantasy, and then I'm doing science fiction with Angel of Mortality, and now I'm writing a book called Julie's Story, which is actual literary fiction. So I've jumped around genres. I haven't necessarily stayed with just one thing. I think
yes,
that's a good experience because each genre has its own set of rules and an audience and everything like that.
true. And those are interesting genres, by the way. Those are very, very, what do you call this? For me, they're very good because I also love what the one that you've mentioned about, what do you call this? Sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, and all that. So it's really something
Yeah.
to look forward to. I hope I get to. I'm just gonna go ahead and check on your other books and this one as well, Angel of Mortality. And if I do have spare time, I'll definitely see how I can read them because considering that you've mentioned about them, I was kind of like, okay, those are very great genres to look forward to. So you're also busy. How did you manage? Like, what was your schedule while you're also writing and you're also doing other things? How did you manage it?
Well, my schedule, of course, at 85, I'll tell you, you're freshest in the morning. So if I don't get something done by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to start to run down for the rest of the day. So I usually in the morning I try and get in my exercise, I get in breakfast, I get all my
Yeah.
cleanup and everything like that done, and by noon I'm basically a functioning human being. And
Mm-hmm.
I usually don't wait. I usually wait to write until sometime in the afternoon, and that's a good time because I'm more creative. I can sit down. I'm done with whatever work I'm going to do for the day, and I may write or I may read. Sometimes reading is very helpful in writing. Just to
True.
get somebody else that you really like to read, it's a good author, and they kind of stimulate you. One of my
Yep.
favorite authors is Kate Morton. I've ever read every one of her books. I think she's just a great writer.
Nice. That's amazing. I would really agree with you when you mentioned about as a good writer, you also have to be someone who's a wide reader. In that way,
Yeah.
you learn things from the author. You get inspiration. You get stimulated with that. What was the most inspiring, or I'm sorry, most surprising thing you learned in creating your books?
I think the character development. When I first sit down to write a book, like the book I'm writing right now, Julie's story, well, the character Julie Gustafson, I had a picture of who she was in mind. I thought she'd be younger. She turns out to be a little older than I thought she'd be. But
Mm-hmm.
you start out with that general characteristic of who you think they are. But by the time you usually have to rewrite a novel 2 or 3 times. And by the third rewrite, the character has taken on a life of their own. And you say, I think I would do this. And they say, no, I'm going to do that. And you kind of
Mm-hmm.
let the character have their head. And pretty soon you find yourself just sitting down and talking to the character about, well, what do you plan to do next? Or how do you how to handle this? And they become real
I
to you. And once
I
they
like that.
become real to you, they're going to be real to the reader too. And I had a
True.
devil
True.
of a time with Angel of Mortality because Raisa is a very complex character.
Mhm.
And on the outside, she's kind of dull. But when you get on the inside, she's not dull at all. So you have to get on the inside of the character and bring the reader into that. And that just takes time. I went to first person present tense specifically to bring Raisa right into the immediate.
That's right. I think I like that you said about you talk to the character and you get to more of like you as a character, how would you want to continue this story? Sort of like that. And then people would really can feel that when I'm also a very I'm a wide reader. I love reading, and when I get to read a book and it makes me cry, it makes me happy at some point. And I think that's the beauty of how authors provided what I call this changes of the characters way of on that certain story or that certain book. And you are one of those authors who's really into that. And considering you've been writing, was it 6 books, if am I right?
Yeah, well, actually, I've written
Yeah.
7 books, but I only
Okay.
published 6. So,
Six,
and
seven.
actually,
All
well,
right.
I've got one I've been writing since 1995, and Angel of Mortality was
Mm,
really a spin-off from that one that I'm still writing. But you talk
Wow.
about crying and laughing. When I came to
Mm.
the very last paragraph of Serious Consequences, I actually cried at the end because it was so sad what happened to Aggie at the end. And but I really felt for her, and yet she was a very confident kind of a lady, and she could take it. But it was a scene that made me cry.
That's the beauty of you reading the book, and you really feel all the lines that the writer or the author is creating, experiencing that what do you call this, how they describe the situation, the feeling of the person, from one person to the other, from one character to the other. It's really amazing, on my perspective as someone who reads. So I'm very excited that you get to share this to the people with all of their books, especially now the Angel of Mortality. And I also look forward, at one time in my life, or probably in the next, if I do have spare time, I get to also read them because you have an amazing experience in life, and you're right now you're also doing your craft, which is your specialty of doing all this masterpiece, that your books that you're doing. And just to conclude the interview, David, what would be the best advice that you would like to share to the young writers who aspire to publish their books or to start writing their book?
Don't keep your stuff to yourself. Share it with other people while you're writing, and take their comments, because everybody has a different point of view. And like almost all my protagonists have been women, and my two best friends of my wife were my best critics, and they would look at it and say, "No, a woman would never do that." And I go back and look at it and I say, "Well, they probably wouldn't. A man might do that, but a woman wouldn't do that." So you need to go to other people and get their opinions and their critique, and just spread yourself around while you're writing. You may change the whole novel because
Mhm.
somebody says this isn't working, and you look at it and say you're right. And how would it work? And you ask them, and they'll tell you, and maybe it'll help.
That's nice. And it's really true. I love what you mentioned about, checking on, asking someone who's also going to be giving you some point when you will be creating a certain book, like how you did ask your wife in creating what do you call this, the protagonist of your novel. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
today,
like you said
David.
that.
We really appreciate your time. Again, everyone is watching right now. That's David Stewart, our author of the book Angel of Mortality. Can you show your book to us, David, so they can see it? Do you have your book with you?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the cover. Can
There.
you see it there?
Amazing. Yeah, we
Yeah.
see it.
And
All
and it's
right. That's
coming
it.
coming out on audio. Oh, it's coming out on audiobook too, which I think is a much more
Oh,
good way
nice.
to get it, because the
Yes.
narrator in the audiobook is very, very good.
Wow, amazing. So we look forward on that for the audiobook, everyone. It's also available for that. You may also grab a copy of David's book that's in Amazon and Barnes& and Noble. And he has his website that's www.davidstewartbooks.com. So you can also visit and
Yes.
check what's happening that he'll be adding or anything like that around his journey as being one of the authors. This is really inspiring. Thank you, David. Again, thank you so much for your time. And as we say here in Reader's Magnet, we share your story with the world. Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.